Yeah, I mean, the point is, like, oh, you can read them in the future when you get older, but
When?
I'm older now,
and it's not
and I'm not reading these things.
And it's not like they're going to stop making comics. Like,
Yeah.
there will be more comics. When I'm old, there will be new comics.
Yeah.
I'll probably be reading those.
In the Midwest, you know the best is there waiting. So come and join the conversation. Eyes the approved, fan and artist and creator too. This is how the challengers do. What? Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. It gets hard, then it's a job for the challengers. What? Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers,
the lowest of all entertainment.
a comics industry business podcast with
The scummiest of the scum, the lowest of the low, the stinkiest of the stinky.
Dirty W. Dal Bush.
It's so bad. It's such a hideous name, Dal.
And Poppy Patrick Brower.
Dal,
Patrick.
as you know, I own a comic shop.
I do know that. I'm very proud of you.
But when I visit other towns, other cities, other places, other countries, it's been a while,
Yep.
I like to go to comic shops.
Sure. You're a glutton for punishment.
You like to go to other comic shops as well.
I really do, but I'm deranged.
When I'm at a different comic shop, I always look for something to buy.
Yeah, you never just want to go in and say, like, this is a great shop, and then walk out, because we've had that happen, and it's like, you saying that nice thing doesn't pay my rent.
But usually what I buy isn't a comic.
Yeah.
And that's because
You own a comic shop.
I own a comic
You
shop.
own a comic shop. The last thing you need is, like, this week's issue of Spider-Man or whatever.
So I'm looking at the idea of comic shops as a whole.
Uh-huh.
And recently I've
The
had
hole where money and
Yes,
interest
H-O-L-E,
go into
yes.
and disappear.
And recently I've had discussions about the state of retail and the state of stores.
Yeah, it's coming up everywhere.
And it's the kind of thing that I think we have a good store.
I'd agree with that.
Some people at one point said we had the best store in the world.
In the world.
In the world. Yet, the kind of thing that I look to buy in a comic shop are things that we don't necessarily carry. We have toys, we have action figures, we have knickknacks, but not a lot.
Yeah, it's a weird situation because the things that we really direct our store towards are comics and graphic novels. But because we own a store that is nothing but comics and graphic novels for the most part, that's the last thing we need when we go into another store. Because it's like, we order from like 6 different distributors. There's almost nothing you're going to have comic or graphic novel wise that's been released in this calendar year that I'm going to go to a store and be like, oh, I didn't know that came out. I want that.
And I do like that we get a lot of people from out of town who are like, do you have a local section? I want to buy something from somebody from Chicago.
Right.
And every time we think, oh, we should get rid of the local section, it's not paying off, it still has a benefit.
Yes.
And we'll still keep that 2 feet of space.
Right.
I mean, it's not, just 2 feet of space, but...
And really, it's less a local section than a small press section because we do have stuff from people who either don't live in Chicago any longer or never have, but are friends of the store, and we want a space for their zines,
their wares,
their creator-owned books.
I'm going to keep using that word wares.
Whatnot.
Did you finish that Rachel Bardless?
Oh, I did. I sent it to her weeks ago, so I'll probably have to shoot an email and say, hey, buddy.
Okay. I was just curious because previously you let me look at it. And
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I did, again, weeks ago. I didn't want to, like...
This time you didn't. You just sent it off.
Be a pest.
You didn't be like, hey, here's what we're getting. And have me say, oh, more of this, less of that.
Sure. I mean, the things I'm not stocking as heavily are things that we haven't sold through on.
Fine.
And then the things I'm getting more of are the things
that
we immediately sell out of, like the stickers.
If you didn't want me to know ahead of time, I don't care now.
I don't want to bother you with the minutia, Patrick. You're a big picture guy. I get that.
I am the big picture guy. I'm thinking more about big pictures, and all these pictures are blurry and underdeveloped, and the film has expired.
Also, your eyesight's bad.
Yeah, true, but it's better than yours. I mean, my eyesight is better than yours unaided.
Yeah, probably.
Without glasses, I can see better than you.
Yeah, most people can.
With glasses, you can see better than me. I'm routinely
a
amazed
wash
by
these days.
things that you see at a distance. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I saw a picture of a local comic shop in the city of Chicago
Okay.
recently, and while the point of the picture wasn't what I'm going to talk about. It's what I focused on, and it's what it looks like inside.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the kind of comic shop that we particularly don't like the visual of.
Mm-hmm.
The way it's laid out, the colors, the fixtures, most of it.
Yeah.
But it's very full of stuff.
Yep.
New comics, old comics, but also stuff.
Yeah.
And we do have a lot of stuff. We always do bag clips, and we try specifically superhero related things. There's a store in Chicago that in the past would always have at their front counter the weirdest, most fun oddity stuff, kind of what you see now in that hidden, forgotten register aisle in Target.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that really narrow aisle right next to the registers that
Where
has
it's
all their sports cards and their game
blind
cards.
boxes. And,
But yeah, it's all the blind boxes and things. But this used to be the things of the one thing, like the two things I always remember is the punching nun
Yeah.
and hander pants,
Mm-hmm.
half finger gloves that looked like underwear.
Underwear for your hands.
Yeah, and those are the things I hallmark that store with. Like that to me doesn't fit the aesthetic or the product line of a comic shop. It's a novelty shop. It's like a Spencer's gift shop kind of item.
Sure. There's always this weird, like, when you say comic shop, what people think of or what they idealize is so different across the spectrum of
Right.
of potential customers and, you know, non-customers, basically. You know, they might have a negative connotation for it. They might be hardcore fans that expect a certain things. Like, we don't carry vintage books. We have back issues, but it's all stuff that's come off the shelves. We sell them for $1.99 or Black Friday weekend, 99 cents.
What?
But we don't buy collections, and as a result, we don't have gold, silver, Bronze Age stuff. We don't have keys. We don't have CGC books. To a percentage of comics fans, and I wouldn't say it's a majority, but I'd say it's definitely like a very high plurality, not having vintage stuff does not makes you not a comic shop. That is almost the thing, more than new books, that they expect to see in a comic shop. So if you say we don't have board books, or we don't buy collections, or we don't have rows and rows and rows of back issue boxes in the middle of our store, not only are they going to turn around and walk out, they're going to make you feel bad before they leave because you've wasted their time.
Yep.
It's false advertising to say you're a comic shop when you don't have the first appearance of the Punisher or
Well, we do.
Amazing 300.
Joe Garrison? We've got copies of books on the wall.
Or like a full run of All-Star Squadron or whatever. Like, if you don't have those things, don't call yourself a comic shop. But to us, that's not what makes a comic shop a comic shop. The stuff that we think is more important is the breadth of the medium as it exists right now. So that means graphic novels. That means manga. That means single issue comics. That means new issues and new series and new publishers. But for a lot of fans, that's the opposite of what they want. They don't care about any of that.
I did a phone interview today with a Columbia College student. I said today, but I meant earlier this week. Mm-hmm. With a Columbia College student, and it was about the problems that comic shops face today. And it was an overview of the market, but right at the beginning of the interview, they let me know that they currently work at a competitor to Challengers.
Mm-hmm.
And
Amazon?
The rest of the interview, as I was talking, so my tone got a little more familiar. Like, I don't need to explain in full sentences what's happening in the industry.
Collegial, to a colleague.
Sure. More commiserative. Mm-hmm. If you work in the industry, then you should get what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. But I quickly realized they didn't. And so I had to bring it back to a more...
You had to dumb it down.
You
wouldn't say it that way.
A more formal...
You had to dumb it down a little bit.
Again, full sentences, answers.
And you went into more detail and context. I overheard you giving some of your answers where previously if you were talking to, say, your good friend David Harper, you might elide some details because he's going to add context when he needs to, and he expects his audience to be familiar with certain basic tenets of kind of what's going on. But if you were talking to somebody who maybe doesn't have that level of familiarity with the topic, you're gonna like let me set up a little like how the
specifically,
industry has been and then how it's changed.
one of the things I love about David Harper is that when you're talking with him for a thing that's going to be out in the world for other people to listen to or to read, he will always break it down and do the aside of, and in case you don't know, what he means by the direct market is or whatever, and explain it out.
Right.
But when we're just talking amongst ourselves, it's all shorthand
Of course.
and abbreviated.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a little bit weird that they didn't have a lot of that knowledge. Here's a quick sidebar again, just sidebarring everywhere. This is a retailer acquaintance of ours who owns a store in New York somewhere, had somebody come in who is a teacher at a local college there and teaches Watchmen, but was also kind of a snob, but also kind of dumb about comics and saying things like, Alan Moore is crazy, he blew it, he could be writing Captain America right now and he chooses not to.
I'm sure that's Alan Moore's regret,
Yeah.
is that he didn't get a chance to do a definitive run on Captain America.
But ultimately this educator's opinion of the shop owner was, A, surprised that the shop owner was as educated about comics as a whole as they were, but B, I mean, you own a comic store, so you should be. What even is that?
I guess.
It's just a ridiculous. But this is a person who, Mouse isn't a comic book because it's too good to be a comic book.
That's a stupid thing to say.
But this is someone who's a teacher. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. So I mean, just because you work in a comic store, it shouldn't be expected that you know everything about publishing and the history of the industry and the distribution channels and blah 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 blah.
Yeah, I mean, there's core job skills you should have, and again, like a current familiarity with like the market and the forces within it are probably an advantage to have doing your job, at least as far as ordering and things like that. But like a lot of the other stuff, I mean, that's just being old, you know?
Yeah,
like,
but specifically
there was a real quick sidebar. ICV2 has been running a bunch of stuff on the 50th anniversary of the direct market, and they did a very long kind of interview with the founding guys from Capital City Distribution. Say it.
Nope.
They did not.
Capital City. Byron speaking.
They did not talk to Byron, and I really hoped they would. I'm like, what if they talked to Byron as like one of the employees who was there in the 90s? No.
Let me see if I can figure out what Byron sounds like today. Capital City. Byron speaking. I assume Byron has a pack-a-day habit.
I love it. I love this speculative continuation of Byron from Capital City's story. Anyway, so a lot of the stuff in there, I'm like, yeah, I remember a lot of these things, and it's cool to hear it from them and kind of what caused whatever. But in general, it's like, oh no, that's just because I'm old.
Yep.
And I was working in a comic shop, not full-time necessarily, but while Capital City was winding down. So yeah, that's where a lot of the backstory of the industry is just being old and being around for a bunch of it. Like that,
Sure.
That shouldn't matter to somebody who's in their 20s who's ringing up a copy of Saga. Like, who cares what the Capital City was a dominant distributor in the 1980s? Irrelevant.
And saw
Who
the writing
cares?
on the wall and got out when the getting was good.
No, they went out of business.
No, they sold their business.
They did, but that was because they were...
Nope, they sold it. They got out.
Ah, okay.
They won. Don Davis, Victor.
Unclear if that's true or not.
So, but I mean, when you look in the context of our part-timers, they don't have to know any of that stuff.
No. We've
Like-
always said that you don't need to know anything about comics. You just have to be enthusiastic. You can teach knowledge.
Yeah.
You can't teach enthusiasm.
But I'm gonna pick Lizzie Challenger.
Uh-huh.
I worked with Lizzie Challenger last weekend, and Lizzie is, as is everybody who works with us, but Lizzie is really good with people. She's really good at talking to people, at making people feel comfortable and welcome. And Lizzie can't tell you when Spider-Boy #2 comes out without looking it up. I can't either.
Yeah, me neither.
Who cares?
That's what the computer's
You know,
for.
maybe Lizzie's not going to be able to tell you exactly who distributes Kodansha manga.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's not a thing that she has to know.
Sure.
But Lizzie is good at dealing with people, bringing them to a book, talking about a book, finding out about a book if she doesn't know about it.
And
And
that's-
that's what we want.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of it. Is just I don't need an encyclopedic person who knows the answer to every question off the the tip of their tongue. But in general, I need somebody who works at the store who knows how to find those answers. Like, one, yes, have a basic interest in comics so that you can recommend stuff, and having a diversity to that knowledge so that if someone's like, I'm looking for a good horror graphic novel, or I've read Miles Morales' Spider-Man, what else would I like? Or I'm looking for a good fantasy graphic novel that's a little darker and not like
I'm
as
going to
magic-y.
put all three of those together. All 8 eyes.
I love it.
Because it's spider related, it's horror, and it's fantasy.
Yep, there you go.
Boom! Also comes out in 2 weeks.
So
Not Boom, it's Dark Horse, just FYI.
being able to answer that sort of stuff, is great. But yeah, when someone has a question about when a book comes out, if something's released or not, how many covers something has, no one can know all that when asked. You need to know how to find that information. Like, how many covers does a book have? Well, here's the distributor I
2,
go
front
to,
and
and
back.
then here's what's coming out and what's available and who's doing what and when the order's closed and all that sort of stuff. Like, that's all stuff that you just need to know how to find it.
And I will tell you that Andrew Challenger has a better recall of Silver Age comics currently than I do at this point. Because he's read them all recently.
Yeah.
And I read them when I was young.
Yeah.
So that knowledge was in there, but it fades out.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. I think it's great he knows all that stuff. And so I don't have to feel like I have to find an answer because Andrew's right there.
Sure.
And it's good that there's still somebody young enough who still wants to know all that about the old books. It's fine. But I mean, I think that the people we have are all well-honed, battle-weary veterans.
Sure.
And it's a common comic shop trope that the people who work at comic stores work there forever.
Yeah.
It's not a quick turnover.
You don't, unless you're talking about Sundays. In general, you don't have a lot of turnover.
Yeah.
People tend to work there. And that's a tough thing when we've had people move to town recently and they'll mention like they worked at another comic shop, and it's like, that's great, we'll keep you in mind, but I don't know when anything's going to open up because, the twin perils of trying to find a job at a comic shop are, one, people don't tend to leave them very quickly, and two, most stores can't afford that many employees.
Yeah.
There's just not enough hours or enough money or both to go around. So, yes, there's definitely people out there that we would ask and people that we would approach about open shifts. But in general, like right now especially, we can't afford to fill open shifts. We just have to do it ourselves, more or less.
The industry as a whole is trending downwards, and it's not a day goes by where some store somewhere is talking about how bad it is or how...
It's a down part of the cycle.
It is. And it is getting more and more bandwidth with larger organizations bringing it up or talking about what can be done.
Yeah, because it's not just like social media talk or convention talk or whatever. Now enough stores are saying it where it's like, okay, it is weird if you are doing well right now.
Yeah. Which is not us.
No.
But I am still amazed that more stores don't close regularly, and that includes us.
Yeah. Well, again, like getting back to it, when you're talking about like a comic shop, it's usually not like a chain of stores where, you can close a store and still keep going. We've done it. You're usually talking about like a single store or a single proprietor. And to paraphrase a thing from The Matrix, there are levels of existence that you can make your peace with. There is a level of cutting to the bone that a normal corporation would be like, absolutely not. There's a minimum amount we have to pay people. But if you own the business, it's like, maybe my spouse just pays for my health insurance for the time being because they have a job and I'm not bringing in any money because I run a comic shop or whatever. I think that's one of the reasons why. Like, it is kind of easy to stretch things in comic shops when you consider how few people it takes to really run a comic shop.
Are you trying to tell me something?
Not right now.
Because I'll happily leave.
That is the resolution for 2024. What if we both found better jobs? If anyone knows of any.
Is there a better job
I just mean one that pays better.
Sure.
I wouldn't say more stable because no one has a stable job. That's a thing that it took me a while to figure that out. That you look at running a comic shop and you think of how precarious it can be and how many times it has been precarious over the last nearly 16 years. But then I think about people who have cycled through any number of jobs for any number of reasons. And it's like, there's no saying that if I, quit for like a regular job,
that job will last.
Yeah, who knows? There was a place I was working at between working for a comic shop and then opening my own shop where a few years after I left, that whole division got downsized. They got bought or sold or whatever. And whoever was there got severance and was let go. That was it.
Yeah.
So if I had stayed, I probably still would have been out of a job.
Well, you could also assume that had you stayed, that their productivity would have been higher.
I was not responsible for
you were making
anything.
money for everybody.
I was not responsible for anything that would have kept that company afloat.
Many years ago in my professional career, I was offered a dream job in the world of comics journalism.
Yes.
In magazine publishing.
Yep.
And it was...
Two things that to this day are huge moneymakers.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It was for Hero Illustrated, if anybody remembers that.
The Lesser Wizard magazine.
Yeah, and I was offered... I got an interview, and I was offered the job, and it was very close to where I lived at the time. It was a significant salary increase. It was a fun atmosphere.
Sure.
And it was stuff that I always wanted to do, but I didn't feel confident in the stability of that publication as a career shift.
Sure.
And out of the gate, they did really well for a very short period of time.
Yeah, it was during a very boom period of the comics market. It was during the 90s where Wish magazine was out, and there was seemingly like an insatiable appetite for comics news and price guides and all that sort of stuff. And then the market shifted. And eventually, like, the internet kind of became more of a thing in collecting and culture in general. And suddenly, like, there was an interest in a monthly magazine because the news moved too quickly. Values moved too quickly.
Did you hear that IO9 laid off 22 people?
No, that sucks.
Yep.
I'm glad Aftermath, which is a website put together by a lot of folks that worked at Kotaku, hopefully is doing well. They're using the same model that Defector used, and Defector was another one of those, like IO9 and Kotaku was all the people who worked at Deadspin, which is another Gizmodo media company, Geo Media, who got laid off because that whole site is shifting towards weird aggregated content stuff. They do a lot of, like, AV Club does a lot of posts now that are like, Daisy Ridley's highest rated movies on IMDb, and it's just a slideshow of like, here's what movie she's been in, what their IMDb ratings are, and it's put together by the IMDb people. Like, there's no content, there's no context. It's just, here's a thing that you can click on, and then AI written stories and just junk. Like, there's no writing because they don't want to put any money into paying writers. So all those people getting laid off is terrible. But hopefully these sites that are now charging subscriptions instead of doing ad stuff can actually provide reliable income and keep those writers employed and serve an audience that has been underserved by really, really, really junky journalism.
It's very weird if you look at sketch.com, SKTCHD.com, David Harper's site. He does everything himself.
That's
Every
crazy.
article with the, like, once or twice a year he'll have a guest person do a column or like an article.
Sure.
But it's all him, and that's his hobby. He's a full-time job, but he's got a subscription, and it's so worth it for the sheer content he puts out every week.
It's a lot.
And again, it's just his hobby. He has a full-time day job. Sometimes I think you should get a full-time day job.
I've thought about it.
I don't know. It's a very precarious part, but it also feels like, well, extrapolating that out everywhere, it's rough for every retail and entertainment company, period.
Yeah. It's the economy and the job market is now very bad, kind of everywhere. Like, the amount of people who had thought that they had weathered the storm of automation are now finding out, like, oh no, AI is taking that too. So
Yeah.
a lot of people who thought they had solid, creative, white-collar jobs are now finding out, no,
Well, even
you might not have that job for very long.
Not even talking about the money part of it. You yourself were lamenting yesterday the sheer amount of viewing media you have stacked up that you just can't get to.
Yeah. I mean, that's a real, first world sort of problem. There's too much content to come out that I want to watch.
Right, but I mean, that is legitimately
it is
something we face. I was talking to
Sure.
a good friend of the store's, Luke Smarto, today, and he's about 30 issues of Amazing Spider-Man behind.
Yeah, I mean, how many issues of Saga are you behind? How many years of Saga are you behind?
I don't think that's a thing.
And that's...
Like, every comic is a ton of story. It's a saga, so I'm behind a couple issues of everything.
That's a part of kind of what we've talked about when it comes to how
probably 40
huge the market is right now. Is there's so many comics being put out, and there's not enough people reading them, and the people who are in the market can't buy more books. They don't have enough time to read the books they do have. So if you're not growing the market with new people, you can't sell more comics to the same people. They're already buying as much as they can.
There's a book coming out next week that Challengers will have, and I forget the name of it, but it's basically a book about the history of British creators in the comic book industry.
Okay.
I'm like, oh man, that sounds really neat. So I got one for the shelf. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I'd love to read that. You will never read that.
No.
You will never, ever read that. I want to.
No.
I just won't. I don't have the time, or it'll go in a pile of all these other history of the medium books that I have right behind me.
All of these shrink-wrapped Absolute editions that I got a year ago, thinking I'll definitely read Batman Year One again, Kingdom Come again, Watchmen again. Haven't. Still shrink-wrapped.
Yeah, I mean, the point is, you can read them in the future when you get older, but
when?
I'm older now,
and it's not
and I'm not reading these things.
And it's not like they're going to stop making comics. There will be more comics. When I'm old, there will be new comics.
Yeah.
I'll probably be reading those.
Look at that super fancy hardcover version of The Good Asian I got. Am I going to reread that anytime?
Look at that Showcase Presents The Trial of the Flash.
Oh my god, that stuff was so good though. And it's...
Sure, look, I got...
Hearing the history behind that about where that story was supposed to go versus what it wound up being.
Sure. I have a ton of graphic novels and things that I absolutely adore, and frankly, that's why I bought them, is because I'm like, well... Mike Mignola's Hellboy is definitive to me. That's one of my favorite things anyone's ever done. And then I have
then where's your Hellboy tattoo?
The deluxe hardcovers, and they're all still shrink-wrapped. I haven't opened a single one of them.
Yeah, but it's way easier to dust them that way.
That's true. Or resell them. We'll see.
It's like when we were younger, comic cards were a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. I have very fond memories of collecting comic cards. That's
kind of what put you on my radar as a human being.
One of my early addictions.
But every once in a while, I think, it would be fun if we did carry some superhero cards again, right?
If they made them in the way they used to, I would definitely do it. Because I do think those are kind of neat. And I think kids, even if it's not a card game or whatever, I think occasionally a pack of cards is neat for kids. But they don't make them that way anymore.
So just today, we were offered the ability to purchase a new Marvel card series. Mm-hmm. The official title of that card series is Upper Deck Marvel Fleer Ultra Wolverine Trading Cards 2024.
Fleer Ultra, I remember that.
Yeah. Right. I'm like, okay, let's look into this.
There was thicker cards, they were glossy, and they might have a little foil.
So, a box of cards,
yep.
A box of card packs.
Yep.
Now, if you think of Pokemon cards or Magic cards, because it's been decades since I bought wax sealed baseball cards.
Right.
But you think, how many packs do you think in a box?
So Pokemon's usually 24 or 36, something like that?
Yeah, 36.
Yeah.
Same Magic is 36 or 30.
Yeah.
So these Wolverine cards from Upper Deck,
Fleer Ultra,
12 packs.
Yep.
12 packs in a box.
That's high.
But wait, let's dig deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to guess what the cost of this box is?
I'm going to say $300.
Okay, now you're just being crazy.
I've seen box prices where it's one pack at $300.
So it is $144 cost for these Wolverine packs. That means you're getting... Oh, I forgot to tell you, there's 6 cards per pack.
Yep.
So you're getting 6 cards
So you're getting 72 cards in a box.
in a box, right? So as a store, if we were selling these packs retail, we'd have to sell them for $20 a pack.
Yep.
Now that is $20 for 6 cards. That means you're paying
Over $3.
$3.33 per card.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Now, I admit I grew up in an era where baseball cards were like a quarter a pack. That's not the case anymore.
Right.
And you and I, a week or so ago, had fun opening a bunch of AEW card packs,
It's true.
which were very expensive, but nowhere near this expensive.
Yeah, and also super weird. Like, so the thing that had come to my attention a while ago when talking to a customer who's a collector of sports cards as well, is how much the market has shifted towards
Premium collectability.
yeah, I mean, well, not even cards, like stuff where it's what you're going to be getting is, you know, a signature, like a Babe Ruth signature that they sourced off of like a canceled check or something that is part of the card, or game worn jerseys that are cut up and then put in the card. So like what you're getting in the pack, it's not like you're collecting like 300 cards in the set. There might not be that many. What you're getting is essentially a pre-sourced limited edition collectible that just happens to be card shaped. So the days of buying a box of cards and looking for rookie cards or looking for, you know, completing a set, like that's not how the market operates anymore.
Yeah, admittedly, I have no idea how many cards are in that AEW metal set because I've never looked it up. But I did notice as we were opening them that some of them are duplicates, but they have a different color background, but they're still the same number of card. Yeah. And there's a ton of other sets.
Right.
Like these sets are all
subsets and stuff.
cut out, so like they're die cut.
Right.
These are all in the shape of a T-shirt. Mm-hmm. These are transparent.
Yeah.
These have a specific kind of foil. Like, all right,
this one has Sheeta on it and goes right in the garbage.
It's way too many. It's way too confusing. But that's, again, as you said, that is everything.
Yeah, again, if there were like the old classic Marvel trading card sets, I would definitely stock those. I would, you know, a $3 or $4 pack of cards that has like 7 to 10 cards in it, and just it's, you know, art from the comics or new art or whatever. I would definitely stock that. I think that'd be very fun to have at the checkout counter. And when we opened, we carried those. And you were not a fan. You did not understand why we were carrying those.
Well, it's because they didn't sell.
They didn't. And nowadays, I mean, maybe they'd sell, maybe they wouldn't. But I think it'd be neat. And I thought it was neat then, too.
They wouldn't, if we'd carried them all
You
along,
didn't believe.
I would have propped up the market.
Who knows how much money we left on the table?
Now, I don't know if this is a case of every program updating, but there have been a ton of broken links in the comics industry just in the last couple of days.
Uh-oh.
For example, the link I used to go to Lunar's site just started being a 404 error.
That's weird.
And it was actually our good friend Brian Garside who posted a thing saying, hey, is this link broken for everybody? I clicked mine, I'm like, yeah, it is. But if you go to your search bar and search Lunar Distribution, and then when you get your Google results page or whatever, and you click the top one, which is the same exact website address, works fine.
Weird.
And even in the saved toolbar, you could see that it was the icon wasn't there. Yeah.
It's weird.
Or in that same email that talked about the Upper Deck cards, all of the links for the pre-order things would just go to dead pages. But if you searched for the item in their website, they came up fine. So I have noticed that Chrome looks different now.
Yeah. They had a big update to Chrome.
Yeah. I get it. Things need updates, but how many times does Shopify update and we're like, why? Why did you do this? Why did you change this?
Weird changes to their user experience where you're just baffled by who was having this problem that they needed to address it. But someone, I guess, was.
Well, Dal, a user experience that we forgot to talk about last week is our appearance on Toon In With Me on MeTV. Now, that is a cartoon show, a hour-long show that shows cartoons, and has a human host and a tuna fish host who do like little linking segments and have themed episodes.
Yeah.
And we, of course, were aware of it because Ryan Nemeth, the Hollywood Hunk, was on an episode
Yes.
and taught them some wrestling moves. But we were approached by Toon In With Me to be on the show. Mm-hmm. And if anybody's seen it, I don't know if I'm legally allowed to play the audio.
I have no idea.
But it's on our Instagram page, and I'm sure it's on their social medias as well. But I'm going to go into a little detail about the experience of getting to the show.
Okay.
So we were first approached, like, hey, do you want to be on it? Sure. We do not turn down opportunities to go somewhere to promote our store
Right.
when it's exposing us to an audience that may not know us
Right.
or something that seems fun. And the original concept was the hosts were going to come to Challengers and interview us about comics at the shop.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Not a lot of effort for us.
Yeah, and we get to show off the store, which is great.
Yeah. And so they would need, a significant block of time to come in, set everything up, the lights and the cameras and the tables and because Toonie, the tuna fish, is so small, he needs to be propped up on a surface and all sorts of things that need to be done. So it would have been a very early morning for us. Fine. We understand, but we were more than willing to accommodate getting the store in order and being there at whatever time.
Right.
And the amount of work that was involved in this whole production, it was phone calls, emails, interviews, video chats, video store tours, brainstorming, texts, so much back and forth. Mm-hmm. And
because the idea kept evolving.
And then it was like, hey, we'll do it this day. Because they try to do all of their, their off-site filming in the same week or so. And, it's TV production. It's fine. And then, oh, no, we have changed the date. Oh, we'll get back to you as to when it's going to be. And then it became, can you come to the studio? Fine. Studio's downtown? Fine.
Yeah, and also going to the studio would mean less time because they don't have to bring everything in, set it up, do the filming, whatever. They're set up for it. It's their studio. We go in, we theoretically film our bit, we get out.
But then it was, hey, we still want to send a cameraman over to do B-roll, to have footage playing for when, you're talking.
Right.
Great. So they set that up, and a guy came out and filmed for a couple hours.
Yeah, I mean, super nice guy. We had to get to the store at we opened at 11, and I think we had to get there at 9.
Which, that's not terrible.
It's not terrible, but it was still 2 hours early for, B-roll footage.
Sure. I mean, I just dropped you off, and I went to go get the books, because it was a Tuesday morning.
Yeah. And I had McDonald's breakfast. Egg McMuffins, they were very good.
See, this whole thing worked out in your favor twice. You get McDonald's breakfast on Tuesday twice.
It's true. That was nice.
And then it was, we show up at the studio. And they'd given us a quick run-through.
The week after we were at the store for them to shoot B-roll, the following week, we went to the studio to do the full segment. And
they'd given me a brief run-through of what the questions could be, what the writers came up with, but knowing that at any given point, the talent could ask whatever they want because it's their show.
Right.
And just to give an idea of how we would answer. And because there's two of us talking, and we knew the segment would be short, and we knew there wouldn't be time for each of us to weigh in for each topic, we just split up the questions. Like, I'll go first, you go second, and bounce back and forth, just to make it a little easier.
Yeah. You had printed out the list of potential questions and topics, and you had looked at it in advance. I didn't look at it until we were in the car on the way to the studio. And we basically just did a quick run through where it was you're I'll take the first one and then you do the next one and we just alternate. And we just sort of did a quick session of okay, well, what's the answer going to be? And what you see in the footage and what you hear if you listen to it on Instagram or whatever, that is almost verbatim what we came up with on our first try in the car.
But that's because we're professionals.
We're very good at this, is what I'm trying to say. Is that it doesn't need... We probably could have just done it completely improv at the studio, but it's no, let's just go through this and figure it out.
We need, they wanted an idea of how we talk and that kind of stuff.
But yeah, it was...
Which they didn't get from you, but they got from me.
It was
your
first
idea,
thought, best thought.
Your involvement in this was as hands-off as possible.
Just like the podcast.
And you went because I asked you to. You would have been more than happy to not go.
You're very good at this, and you represent the store well. And,
Yeah, but you're also the store.
But here's the thing, and this is I think what's one of the things that's kept the store running for 16 years is that my laziness will overshadow my ego. Like if the store succeeds because of you, I don't care because the store is still succeeding. Like
Sure.
I don't need to own that success. I will just benefit from it and know that I slept in that day.
It's not like I'll read an interview that you gave and I'll be like, that should have been me, damn it.
But I mean, there are stores that do that, where one partner or another feels like they're not getting the credit they deserve, or they're not, that someone else is the public face of the company. And look, I genuinely have never cared if you are seen as the owner and I'm just like the co-owner or whatever. Yeah, exactly. The spouse.
To use the
partner.
A line from friends of ours who own a store, who are a married couple, and everybody thinks that the wife who works the store 5 days a week, they just say, "Oh, are you the owner's wife?"
The owner's wife.
Yeah.
So,
I've always said that my weaknesses are your strengths.
Sure, and vice versa. But if this is something you had just been like, I'm going to do this, it would have been like, great, like, have fun with that. Like, I will help as much as you need me to, but I'm happy to also not participate in any
You'd
of
be
this.
like, that's great. Can you get me McDonald's breakfast on the way back?
No, I'll just get DoorDash. But yeah, like, this was a thing that you had thought it would be a good idea if both of us did it, and so I said, okay, sure. And we did it. We went to the studio.
We had our own dressing room, which was a corner of a back hallway with a little plastic curtain pulled up.
It was a fabric curtain.
Okay.
It was fabric.
Okay.
It wasn't plastic.
We went through makeup. We had makeup.
We did have makeup. Yeah, I've never.
In fact, there's of our Tuesday night Instagram videos, there was one where I talked about not wanting to ruin my makeup, and that is from that day.
Right. Most of the stuff that we've done filming wise that I've participated in, it's pretty much all been at the shop or been like someplace other than a studio. Like this was the first time I think maybe ever that I've been in a actual professional television studio. So the idea of them doing makeup and stuff, hair they didn't ask me about, weird, but doing makeup had me.
I did get a couple of hits of hairspray.
You did, yeah. I was told I had a good complexion, which is nice.
Yeah, I was not told that.
I think she said you had other things that were very positive. I'm sure she complimented other parts of your facial features or
nothing.
No? That can't be right. I can't remember where I was going with this.
It's your first time in a studio.
Yeah,
you'd makeup. Makeup was a big
just
thing.
that doing all of that sort of prep stuff is not usually what we do because you might get mic'd up or something.
Yeah.
But that's usually it. This was like the whole like you are going to be filmed on TV in a professional studio.
We were mic'd up. We had packs in our back pockets.
Yep.
Mics up our jackets or vests. The irony was I wear a vest. You can put it anywhere. They had to move it
because your beard.
Maybe I
think it was beard noise. I think because the beard was brushing against something.
Maybe that's possible. So the full segment that aired was 3 minutes, and it was basically one take, except they had to redo one because there was a problem with Bill's microphone. Mm-hmm. And then they just redid it virtually the same.
Again, we're very good at this.
Right.
But just sit us down and be like, am I looking at you or am I looking at the camera? What am I doing? Like, and then we can go.
Dal had had two good lines that they cut out entirely.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, one of them was, what makes your store different? And I was like, well, we're the best, obviously.
We're the best. No, I'm just kidding.
But so the segments go... So the whole point was, they show cartoons, and they want to talk about comics, and they saw that we had puppets, and they're like, oh, can you bring the puppets? We don't know what we're going to do with them, but can you bring the puppets? Mm-hmm. So it's like, all right, we'll bring the puppets.
Yep.
So Janet and I had to get the puppets down, clean the puppets off.
Because they've been on dusty shelves, unmoved for years.
And at the time the puppet was made, I didn't have a beard. Uh-huh. So years ago, I put on a yellow construction paper beard. It's just one of our old flyers, actually, cut into the shape of a beard.
Okay.
and it was taped to my glasses.
Right.
But since I was in the midst of making my
Halloween
Evil Uno Halloween costume, and I had some silver fabric, I'm like, oh, I'll make a silver fabric beard for him, and then glue it to his face.
Sure.
So I did that, and that was different. So he had a silver beard, which is what I have now. I have a silver beard. It's time for puppets in the studio. So the segments were, Bill makes a joke about having a whole stack of Superman #1s, and then says, but comics are worth something, right? There's money in comic collecting. So the first segment is us saying, no, there's no money in comic collecting for the most part. And then Toonie asks what makes our store special. And then it was, oh, you guys brought puppets. And that was it.
Yeah.
Now, they would intersperse screen time with the B-roll, but they put like a sepia tint on the B-roll. So every time you see the store, you look at it and like, those colors are off.
I wonder if it's that or if it's just some like because of the lighting or whatever.
No, because it also had like the faded edges,
Did it?
like it was
Okay.
old timey.
Because I've definitely had photos in the store in the past where it's like the combination of natural light and the fluorescent light is doing something weird to these photos.
Yeah. So I mean, I sent you a copy of the video.
Yeah,
But that didn't stand out to you.
I watched it on my phone
Sure.
like one time.
That's how everyone watches it, I guess.
I guess.
It was really great to meet the number of people that I know in real life who are like, I watched that show already.
It's cool.
But it just felt like we didn't get across comics.
I think it was good. I had fun doing it, and I think the questions were good, and the segment was not the usual. Like they got into some other stuff, and
Well, they certainly didn't say Biff Bam Pow Comics anywhere.
right, it didn't infantilize comics. Like it wasn't.
Well,
it wasn't
Bill
doing
Leff
that.
is a long-standing Chicago DJ and radio personality, so it was really good to interact with him.
Well, and it was cool because after the filming, we ended up talking a little bit about comic books, and he was calling out some like Bronze Age Marvel DC hits.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh no, you did read stuff and you do have a fondness for it.
My favorite bit we did was not in the actual interview, but it was used for promo. Mm-hmm. And I guess it aired like elsewhere on MeTV or whatever, like, coming up tomorrow on Toon In With Me. Mm-hmm. And it was you and I both were like, we didn't know that this was happening. So we were both acting, but not looking at each other. And I thought it was really funny the way it turned out, because it was basically like, hey, tomorrow we're talking comic books with the guys of Challengers, and they brought puppets. And Bill turns and says something like, and Toonie, you don't like puppets, do you? I do not. And each of us reacts to that like, I get like, oh no, and pull my puppet away, and like you just cover your puppet's eyes.
I do, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Like
that's a good bit of business.
That was like, no one told us what to do. We just did it, and
Just
like
did it.
this to me that was my favorite bit of the thing.
That's good.
And it was just a promo.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Patrick, we're good at this.
we are.
We have fun doing it.
It was fun. It was a very fun thing. But it's like and it was beneficial because as soon as it aired, somebody went online and bought and they specifically wanted us to bring Looney Tunes comics.
Right.
They like, bring comics, but bring Looney Tunes. And it makes sense because they show Looney Tunes cartoons.
Sure.
But if you were to say, hey, bring a comic to talk about, it wouldn't be that. No Hey EW this week.
Yeah, really? Oh, because of pay-per-view.
Yeah,
that
but I
makes
mean,
sense.
RJ's already said no.
But that's
because,
every
quote,
pay-per-view weekend.
His gears are full.
Yeah.
So I'd actually had brought a copy of The Six Sidekicks of Trigger Keaton because I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, because I think they had also said,
hey, if you're going to recommend
like Toonie or whoever might ask for a recommendation.
Yeah.
Bring something, and so, have something.
And they tried to stump you by saying, Bill's like, well, I like toast. And you're like, yeah, we've got Mr. Toast.
Mm-hmm. We actually did still have it at the store. Afterwards, I'm like, oh God, what if we don't have it anymore? Like, that's an old kids comic that we had from like 14 years ago. Still got it.
Yep. It's interesting to me to like how much work, and it's a total Hollywood thing, how much work goes into it for what you see. How many shots, how many takes, how many angles.
I mean, it was literally weeks of work, non-consecutive.
But the actual recording
get to a finished piece
was basically live.
Yeah.
Like we just ran through it one time and we're good.
Yeah, one take basically.
Yeah.
Because we don't, I think we mentioned this to them when we were there. Like, we don't like wasting anyone's time. Like, we don't want this to be something where it is extra work for you to deal with us.
We don't want anyone to look at a thing saying, I wish we didn't book them.
Right.
We do that enough about ourselves.
It's true.
At a certain point, I was going to try to work in what I was talking with Luke about, and I don't have the phrase exactly, but one describing just the state of comics today, and it was a general back and forth conversation. He came up with a quote of, "It sounds to me like comic publishers don't want comic stores to exist."
It's difficult to see what comic publishers think the direct market should look like. That is something that I think about frequently.
Well, looking at the slate of free comic day books for 2024, which they announce now. They used to announce in January, but now they keep announcing them earlier and earlier. But they don't because half of them are classified or to be told later.
All the DC stuff is like, you'll find out next year.
DC has way too many books.
Yeah, I think they did like 3 or 4 last year as well. I don't know.
But I mean, like, aside from the ones they've told us, they've got, hey, a middle grade one to be announced, a young reader one to be announced, a Mad Magazine one to be announced.
Jesus.
And that's on top of what they have told us.
Yeah.
And I was going to talk more about free comic day books, but getting a glimpse of how DC is planning their 2024 and how they're the 3 major storylines that are moving together and shaping what is the DC universe of next year.
The Trinity of Evil.
Yeah. The Trinity of Evil. I don't like it.
I think DC as a company has put way too many eggs in the Amanda Waller basket.
That is what I was going to build up to. Like, they're making Amanda Waller the big bad.
Boy.
And
because she was in James Gunn's Suicide Squad and probably is going to be in more stuff in the DC movies.
I like the Amanda Waller character. I like the role that they have in the DC universe. I don't want them becoming the ultimate bad guy for the DC universe and the one who wants to run everything.
Yeah, I don't care.
And again, that character is not enough of a villain to make me be like, oh, the whole Justice League has to take her down.
It's like Henry Peter Gyrich or Nick Fury. Like, there's only so much of a level before it's like, well, superheroes should be above all of this. Like, this almost seems too small of a problem.
I think that Marvel specifically is dropping the ball on Free Comic Book Day next year in a huge way.
Why is that?
They've announced their 2 books, and it's a
Spider-Man Ultimate Universe and Blood War.
And X-Men.
Or Blood Hunt or whatever.
X-Men Blood Hunt.
Yeah.
So, like, each book serves 2 purposes.
Just like they've the last few years.
But at least it's all original stuff and not just reprints.
Yeah, again, that's typical for them. Well, they'll do 2 different books, 4 different stories, and generally all brand new material in those 2 comics. They usually do like maybe a third one where it's like reprint stuff from
2 pages
Marvel
of
Voices or something.
Jonathan Hickman book.
Right.
Yeah. But the biggest deal is, what is their major licensed property?
Star Wars?
What day is Free Comic Book Day?
May the 4th.
Why not do a Star Wars book for this year?
Because all their Star Wars books sell terribly.
What a better way to try to... Speaking of Star Wars
interesting.
books, there's an Obi-Wan book coming out in 2 weeks that we literally ordered. How many copies?
3?
3 copies.
Well, it's because it's adapting the TV show.
And nobody cares.
Nobody cares. I mean, The Mandalorian sells like maybe double that, which is the 6
Still
copies.
terrible.
Oh, all of the Star Wars stuff sells awful now, and I don't know what they should do about it. Because the problem is, the main stuff that they do comics for is the original trilogy era. But they've run out of that space. You can only really do 2 chunks of stories. One between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, which they did for 4 years, and that's all done. And then one for the block between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And they've been doing that for a number of years, and those sell awful now. So, like, I don't know. You could do stuff after Return of the Jedi, but that's where all of the Disney Plus TV shows are operating right now. So they're probably not going to have a lot of leeway to do stuff in there because someone higher up the food chain is doing those stories. There's the High Republic stuff, which sells okay relative to how awful everything else sells for Star Wars comics. And then a bunch of weird miniseries. They're doing like a Mace Windu miniseries. They're doing a Thrawn miniseries. There's no cohesion. There's no sense of like, what is the main Star Wars book? And then what, like this Dark Droids thing, no one cares.
That's what you get when you try to do a major Star Wars crossover nowadays.
Yeah. They definitely need to do something different, but I couldn't even begin to tell you what that should be. Just not what they're doing right now in any form. None of it's clicking. None of it's doing well.
You could still make something for Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah. I don't know what it would be. I mean, anything would be fine, but I don't know what sales purpose it would serve at this point.
It is a let down.
Sorry.
I don't know. I feel like Free Comic Book Day is also something that needs to be reevaluated from a Challenger standpoint. Or
Sure.
Changing our expectations or something.
I've already changed my expectations for what Free Comic Book Day is.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. It went very smoothly last year, but it wasn't the sales days it used to be.
Nope.
What is anymore?
Yeah. It was representative of where the market is right now in every respect.
Well, I think next week we'll go into more detail about our upcoming online sales.
Okay.
Which is a thing we've never done before, but we're giving a stab for this holiday season.
Yeah, let's stab.
I like stabbing. Stabbing's good. This is the point in the episode where I say, Dal, have you read any previews?
I want to say no.
I feel like I have, but nothing stands out.
I forgot to look at the DC stuff this week. But honestly, a lot of the DC stuff was going to be like Titans Beast World, and I am okay not reading this.
Yeah, I read Titans Beast World 1
okay.
and 2. And I've read Wonder Woman 3 is real good.
Yeah, I'm at the point where for those I'm just going to read them in print.
That's fine.
I didn't need to read the
That's
PDFs.
fine. You know what, Dal? That is fine.
Oh, thanks, Patrick.
We had a subscriber drop Avengers yesterday. I'm like, aw.
Mm-hmm.
I remember how excited people were to jump on the Jed McKay era because they'd fallen off of the Jason Aaron
Yeah, I
era.
think his first couple of stories were real good.
Yeah.
And it's just good basic, like, the Avengers are fighting supervillains again. Instead of multiversal variants and whatever else.
Yeah, I could use less multiversal variants
Yeah.
and things.
Yeah.
And more, less of the, oh, this character always existed, you just didn't know it.
Yeah,
That
that's
kind of thing.
never super fun.
I mean, Dan Slott's done it twice already.
Yeah. And no one talks about Triumph at DC.
But don't worry, there's a new century. There's 3 new centuries.
I don't care.
Wait, hold on. Do you care?
I don't care.
Oof.
Century is like Watchmen, where it was like one good story, and anything past that is missing the point. It's funny to me because it's Tom Brevoort gets around this idea every so often, and it's like, boy, but you just don't see it, do you? Like people will say, like Miracle Man, like I thought Miracle Man was going to be in the Marvel Universe, and he's like, maybe eventually it will be, but right now it doesn't make any sense because a lot of what Miracle Man is a commentary on things like the Marvel Universe. So once you put him in the Marvel Universe, he's not special. It doesn't matter. Like you've broken it. And it's like, that was Century, where it was like one complete story about a very specific view of like Marvel history and a way of looking at that. And then you just kept going with it, handing it to other people. And it's like, well, no, the Century just being...
Now they're just making superhero stories.
Being your Superman is not the point.
Well, things always evolve from the original idea. You could always say things get older, things age, things once a year go up in number.
Oh, like New Year's Day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or like next Tuesday, which is Dal's birthday.
What? No, I don't like hearing that. No, it's fine. I have nothing against my birthday.
No, you don't. That's why I'm telling people.
Yeah.
If they want to call the store and wish Dal happy birthday, that's fine. Specifically between like 11 and 1, because I won't be there.
Yeah, there you go.
So you have to answer the phone at
I
that
have
point.
to.
Yeah.
No getting around it.
Nope. It's not a big one, but it's a half one.
They're all big ones
It's-
now
it's a
because they're
half
all
big
very
one.
high numbers. The numbers are getting incrementally terrifying.
Or one higher every year.
They are.
You know, like everybody.
It's true. Nothing special about birthdays.
Well,
Everyone got them.
happy birthday in advance.
Thank you, Patrick.
And Dal, especially you, but everyone else as well. Thanks for listening.
Hey, and keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 888-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.